He says this in verse number 16. He says, "For Israel slideth back as a backsliding heifer. Now the Lord will feed them as a lamb in a large place. Ephraim is joined to idols." What are the next three words? Let him alone. That's probably the scariest place that you can be as a Christian, when God says, "I'm done trying." You know, there's some churches that are going liberal that I think could still be saved. But there will come a day when God says, "Let that church alone." Rock Harbor to be Rock Harbor. Just let it do its own thing. I'm not going to punish your daughters. I'm not going to punish him. I'm just going to let you do your own thing. Let him alone. I don't want to be that Christian that is so stubborn on living my life the way I want to that God says, "You know what? I can't use Pastor Boyle anymore. I'm just going to let him live the rest of his life for himself." And I stand before God, living 80 years, and I have nothing to give him. Because God didn't try to use me. He let me alone. It sounds like back in Esther. Remember when Mordecai was trying to convince Esther? Man, I tell you what, in that chapter alone, there's probably 10 or 15 phrases that are very good messages. But Mordecai comes to Esther and says, "You know, maybe you're brought to the kingdom for such a time as this." That's one of those phrases that, wow, yeah, and that's a great message. Maybe you're brought to the kingdom for such a time as this. But then he begins to go on and says, "But if you won't do anything and you altogether hold your peace," he warns her. He says, God's still going to deliver his people, but he says this, "from another place." Mordecai tells Esther, "Hey, God's going to deliver his people, but he's not going to use you if you won't do it." "Oh, well, then I'll just let somebody else do it." No, there's a danger of God going to another place. You lose the blessings of God.